Okay, not ashamed to talk about arousal, physical arousal, Holy Spirit arousal. These two things were hidden from me until I was approximately 40 years old. These things were not discussed, but I got breakthroughs on both of these things. These things had been hidden from me. I was freaking robbed. If somebody gives you the keys to a car and they don't tell you how to change the oil, and your car actually ends up burning up and dying, that's a shame. You were robbed of the ability to maintain your gift, your machine. I am making this presentation because, Eliana, I am inspired by you. You are a special treasure person in Ocean City. I don't know how long I'm going to live, and I don't have children. I want to put my discoveries, including the little intimate discoveries and the special spiritual discoveries, I want to put my discoveries into the hands of others so that they can go forward with the things that really worked, that I needed when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. They did not give me this stuff. This is my way of getting back at being robbed and neglected and actually abused by the churchianity around me and the elders who actually, they weren't courageous enough and they really weren't insightful or wise enough. I don't condemn anybody, but it is a tragedy to stumble through life and be self-destructive when there is information available. So, not ashamed to talk about arousal, physical arousal and Holy Spirit arousal, and the need for both of them. Yay! In singleness and in marriedness. Now, here is my lifeline timeline. Oh, we got a bad shadow here. What's going on? Okay. That's my lifeline. Okay, I was born in 57, right? And then here's 67, 77, 87, 97, 2007, 2017, 2027. And now is 2020, 2022. Okay. In 1961, my mom was baptized in the Holy Spirit in a way that was so wild and supernatural, she didn't even know what was going on. And guess what? The church told her not to tell anybody. And I did not hear about my mother's Holy Spirit arousal moment until 1998. That's like 37 years. I was literally unaware that some wild supernatural thing had happened in my own home to my mother. It's a great story. It's amazing. That was 1961. Then in 1963, I was about 6 years old. I was introduced to physical arousal, stimulation of the penis, by some really good friends in a way that was kind and positive. I mean, we didn't tell our parents, but remember, there was shame. There was no talk about arousal and physical arousal at all. That was not even talked about. And here my mom and my dad both had been incredibly promiscuous people. My father was married 5 times, and my half-brothers and sisters told me that there's at least 6 or 7 other children that were born out of wedlock because our dad was making out with just about everybody. So if Christians supposedly discern spirits, maybe they would have talked with me about the fact that I was a little child with a super promiscuous mom and a super promiscuous dad that I'd never even met. But they didn't say anything about that to me. So in 1963 was when I began being active in physical arousal. And it was a power over me. It was an intense power over me for the better part of 40 years in my life. I was ignorant. I had no conversation about physical arousal or Holy Spirit arousal from people who were wise. But then, from 1963 to 1993, I had lots of tragedies and a lot of blindness. That's 30 years. But in 1993, I had a girlfriend. And in my girlfriend's library, there was books about men and women being self-controlled in intimacy and turning back the arousal, stalling it, postponing it. It's a term called semen retention. In some places on the internet, people who are sexually active call it edging. It means getting to almost to the point of orgasm, but then quieting down. So in this relationship with a girlfriend that I was not married to, after I had had a failed marriage in this time of tragedies and blindness and a lot of confusing relationships and a lot of chasing of sexual pleasure and basically, sexual pleasure and comfort, I was a sad person. I didn't know that my parents had been lying to me. I didn't know there were hidden things in my life, and I had an inner sadness. And the physical sexual comfort was one escape from my inner sadness, just like a comforting sharing of love and sharing and giving of pleasure. And so in 1993, I had a wrecked marriage, and I had a girlfriend. And in her library was something was very helpful to me. Very helpful. Exercises, self-control exercises. Self-control exercises. And I was doing these exercises, and I really had a completely transforming feeling. I literally felt like a return of my youth when I was saying no to myself, being partly aroused and then quieting down. And again, we're not ashamed to talk about physical arousal. I was partly aroused and then quieting down. And the exercises, this is 1993, and the exercises that I was doing are also for women as well. But it's easier for women to quiet down because their arousal is all internal, and the male arousal is much more external and distracting and even interesting to the eye. It gets your attention. I like to say a penis is meant to be shared. It's a cool part of life. It's meant to be shared. It's little, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it looks really interesting, and it becomes enjoyable. And it's designed to be shared with two people. I really like there's in my YouTube, Grandpa Honesty Guy YouTube, write this down, Grandpa Honesty Guy YouTube, there's a YouTube playlist called, it's like Honest Family Talk About Sex and Spirits. Honest Family Talk About Sex and Spirits. And in that list, there's one little video of a rabbi's daughter talking about why Jews have such a great sex life. And she describes that it is known and common knowledge that the clitoris is the only human organ that is designed only for pleasure. It is only an arousal thing. The penis, flows forth with the seed of life, but it also flows forth the with the urinary discharge, with the discharge of water. And knowing and understanding and feeling interested in the physical arousal of the woman, actually, when the man learns physical self-control, when the man learns to quiet down and quiet down and quiet down and quiet down, he can last a whole lot longer, and the woman feels so much better. Now, in the teaching that I learned in my girlfriend's library, the friendly grandpa elder teacher said, okay, you do these exercises, you learned how to quiet down, you do it 3 times in a row. You get big and you quiet down. You get big and you quiet down. You get big and you quiet down. You do it 3 times, you do it 6 times in a row, you do it 9 times in a row, up to 36 times in a row. You just keep practicing and practicing. And it's amazing because I found the place where I can actually say no to my arousal without doing a lot of physical flexing and physical control, and I can turn off my arousal and quiet down. I mean, it's like there's a place inside of me that can actually turn off the physical arousal. And that becomes a benefit for me if I'm walking single, and it becomes a benefit for my woman if I'm enjoying her, because I can last longer. This was a huge breakthrough. And the teacher said that in simple cultures and in wise cultures, male human beings are taught this practice of quieting down long before they have a flow of seed. They're taught this practice of quieting down in their youth when they're 5 to 10 years old, so that they are all already practicing. And this is a practice that is known to the whole family. It's not some kind of big secret thing. It's like, okay, girls and women, pray for the guys with the penises because they are a little bit difficult to handle, and it's a very distracting part of our family life, and you should care about the people, that we care about. So caring about the physical arousal is the same as me caring about the women in the menstrual cycle and wanting to care for them and give them extra comfort and protection and compassion and just friendly family care. Take more rest. We want to protect you. So understanding that the male human being has this power of physical arousal that is very distracting, and actually having a family kindness towards that physical arousal is a thing that changed my life. Right here, right there, when I learned to quiet myself down, my girlfriend was saying, oh my gosh, this is the most wonderful, kind, close, and friendly intimacy I've never had. And we were both like crying. And she was like, I feel like we shouldn't even be doing this if we're not married. This is such an intense closeness and a flowing friendliness. And I agreed with her. Now, the teacher of the physical self-control was saying, this is actually ordinary human physiology and teachings that have been forgotten. And that's fascinating. In the next video, I will just talk about the physiological practice. There's not a whole lot to it. It's a very simplistic thing. You use the Kegel muscle. Your stop peeing muscle is a key muscle that you teach your children. If you're in an agrarian society and you have a farm, you can walk out in the field and you can teach your child how to stop peeing. And that's one thing that the men can do with the boys and the women can do with the girls. You let your pee flow, and then you pull up on the muscle that's right between your butt cheeks, and you stop peeing. and that's your Kegel muscle, and you learn how to flex that Kegel muscle. And you can even do that as a family. You can pull up and count to 10. 1 Philadelphia, 2 Philadelphia, 3 Philadelphia, 4 Philadelphia, 5 Philadelphia, 6 Philadelphia, 7 Philadelphia, 8 Philadelphia, 9 Philadelphia, 10 Philadelphia. Release. And that's a Kegel muscle flex. And that's part of what I learned back in 1993. Now, the teacher said, if you learn this physiological self-control, you will be much more open to friendship with the spiritual and with the eternal and with God. And just a handful of months later, I got this wild, beautiful God invasion. And it was not a coincidence. It was really intense. So on this chart here, there's a big change in my life around 1993, 1994. In 1993, I had divorced from the woman that I wanted to be with I had promised to be with for the rest of my life. And Jesus said, look, if you make a marriage vow, it's permanent. It lasts for your whole life. And so it was a really rough time, a time of a lot of transitions. My divorce, the discovery of sexual self-control, and then the discovery of the proofs of God. So there was a big change in 93, 94, and then the time of observation was 94 to 2018. From 94 to 2018, I was researching the church mess in America and researching early Christianity and a lot of the revivals and movements and supernatural things that have happened in Christian history and the leaders of movements and what they did and what they did wrong and all this kind of stuff. That was a period of research. Then from 2018 until, like, God actually told me, no more ordinary church. Only when it's a special time to bring somebody special into a special service. Don't hang out in the ordinary church environments or the ordinary convocations. Now you need to help train people in how to do honesty times in the home and create confidence in the friend groups. See, people don't trust anybody. And they're supposed to actually flow and share with all of the common problems. Times of telling the story is now for me. From 2018 to the present, I'm telling the story of my life and beginning to do the practice of having confidence in friend groups and in true ecclesia. So you, Eliana, and your guy are meeting me at the time of my beginning to tell the story and beginning to practice. And anyone else who's watching this, I want to apologize because, like, I truly was blind for a long time. And then when I was researching, I was locked down in the atmosphere of these small-minded churchianity people, and I was having to learn from them. And God was telling me not to complain about their negative behavior, but just take notes and go and study and think about how I would improve on their mistakes instead of condemning them and just checking out and leaving. So this was a serious, painful time of research because, like, one of my favorite stories is, like, I'm at a church where I'm literally watching miracles happening in the church with the pastor and his wife, and then I'm discovering that their kids are actually making porno in their bedrooms at the same time mommy and daddy are making miracles in the church building. And because there is no confidence in the friend groups, in the honesty circle with communion and happy, funky honesty times where we're just real about all the ordinary stuff and moving with the Holy Spirit arousal, because we don't have the real gatherings in homes that actually support our business and make us more beautiful people, caring for others. Since we don't have those friend group things, like, it's just a Jesus information business, and, our hearts aren't open to each other and there's problems. Now, with the increase of world evil and the depopulation of the world, and if you're not aware of that, go to Grandpa Honesty Guy playlists, World Dangers playlist. World Dangers playlist and spend many hours watching those videos, because there's a great amount of information on the World Dangers playlist that I was not taught in school. Now, every single piece of information is not absolutely pure and golden in that playlist, but it gives you a much bigger picture of the money powers that are in control of the world, and the fact that the media is giving you information that is destructive to you, to your family, to your marriage. It's even training you to be disinterested in wise elders, disinterested in being faithful to your own person. There's a lot of dangerous stuff that's being taught through entertainment in the media. So anyhow, not ashamed to talk about arousal, physical arousal, and Holy Spirit arousal. Now, I have started 2 new YouTube channels, and I'm a little bit scared and timid about them, but the Holy Spirit's given me these titles. One is called Christian Sex Daddy YouTube, and it's basically me talking about this whole sexual experience of life without having decent conversation about arousal in the physical and arousal in the Holy Spirit that gives you guidance and warning and relationship guidance. I'm telling you, the Holy Spirit will give you guidance in relationship, and when to stay, when to leave, when to walk single, when to walk married, that kind of stuff. And so Christian Sex Daddy is one title, and then another title is The Clitoris and Christianity. And that is the reality of the discovery of the clitoris, and it's a bunch of videos of people who are kind and cheerful and just talking real about this part of the body. It doesn't rule your body. Like when you're on your deathbed and you're dying and you know you're not going to live anymore, you're not going to be thinking about whether you had enough times of happy sex. You're actually going to be thinking about whether you are being received by the God of love and life. So, the physical arousal is a secondary thing, but it's a powerful part of life. And if you don't care enough about yourself and your friends and your children to check in and say, how are you doing with physical arousal? Then, it's going to be a problem. If you don't have courage to talk about ordinary stuff, it's going to own you. So the 2 new YouTube channels, I'm starting to pull up some courageous videos and just real fun talks for family and for kids. Remember, if you were following Leviticus 15, where the whole family cares about the woman in her cycle for 14 days, where the whole family cares about every man whenever he has the flow of the good baby fountain, the flow of the man is surrounded by almost irresistible pleasure, and the flow of the woman is surrounded by a measure of pain, discomfort, and difficulty. Those are 2 realities that are different between male and female. Yippee yahoo! Let's care about each other and actually be a marvelous team and be unified and have just a care